If you've got your GCSEs in less than a month's time, let's help you get that grade 9. Continuing with where we left off, let's get back to question 14. So we're told the price of some vegetables and we need to work out the total cost of 4 kg of carrots and 2 kg of potatoes. Let's start with what we know. Since we know 3 kilograms of carrots cost £1.80, we can work out that 1 kilogram is equal to 60p. As we know 2 kg of carrots plus 5 kg of potatoes is equal to £3.45, we can sub in our value of 2 kg for carrots, and we can rearrange to find the value of 1 kg of potatoes. And we get 1 kg of potatoes to be equal to 45p. Now we can work out what the question's asking for, which is 4 kg of carrots and 2 kg of potatoes. And we get £3.30. Next question. Now question 15 is all about algebra. Part A, we need to expand a bracket. To do that, we times each term by what's outside the bracket, so we get 2a plus 2d. Part B, we need to factorize. Now when we factorize, we first have to find what's common in both terms, and we can take that out. This question, we can see y is common in both terms, so I can bring y outside of our bracket. To find out what goes inside the bracket, we need to see what can we times y by to get our two terms which are in the question. For the first term, 6y squared, we can times y by 6y and we'll get 6y squared. Our sign always stays the same, so we can write that. And to get 5y, we can multiply y by 5. And that's our final answer. For part C, we have to solve this algebra equation. Our first step is to try and get x on its own. To do that, we can bring the 7 to the other side. To get rid of the 4 in front of the x, we can divide both sides by 4. We get x is equal to 11. Question 16, we have a kite, and for part A, we need to verify if a statement is true or if it's false. Now, Jasper says x can equal 0.5. As we know side length AB is 4x minus 2, let's sub in 0.5 as a value and see what we get. This equals 0, so we know Jasper's not correct because you can't have a side length which is equal to 0. For part B, we need to find the value of x. We're given that side AD is equal to 3 of side AB. Our first step would be to label our sides in terms of x only. Now that we've labeled all of our sides, we can add them all together and equate that to 64. First, we'll add all of our x terms together, and now we'll add our integer values. All that's left now is to rearrange, and we get x is equal to 1.5 centimeters. Next question, guys. We're given a recipe and the amount of ingredients that Heidi has. In part A, we need to calculate the maximum amount that she can make. First, let's summarize the recipe in terms of algebra. This makes 12 biscuits. Let's find out how much one biscuit requires. Now let's work out for each constraint, so we have butter, flour and sugar, how much we can make, and we have to go with the lowest number so it'll satisfy all 3 of our constraints. 11 is our lowest number, so that's the maximum amount of biscuits we can make, since if we make any more, we won't have enough flour to make them. Part B says Heidi has more than 250 grams of sugar, and we need to see if that'll affect our answer in part A. This doesn't change our answer because we're dependent on flour, we're not dependent on how much sugar we have. We need more flour so that we can make more. So the short answer is no. Question 18, we need to draw a graph. Given that the equation of the graph is y equals 2x minus 2, and we need to plot from points minus 2 to 3. Let's first plot what we know, which is the y-intercept is minus 2. And we know our gradient is 2 because the integer before x is 2. Meaning the change in y over change in x is equal to 2, so the slope is 2. Our graph will look something like that. Question 19. We need to work out the percentage loss that Robin has made now that he sold his watch for a lower price. Let's first summarize the information we know. First, we're going to find out how much he actually lost, which will be 80 minus 56. From here, to get the percentage, we simply divide by 80 and times by 100. And we get 30%. Question 20. Without using a calculator, we need to work out 3.67 times 4.2. Our first step is to remove all of the decimal places in the question. We've removed 3 decimal places in total, so let's make a note of that on the side. Now, using column method, we can work the value of this out. We get 15,414. Now, the most important step, we need to bring our decimal places back. Since we got rid of 3 decimal places at the beginning, now we're going to put all 3 back in. Therefore, our final answer is 15.414. For part B, we use the same principle. First, we're going to take out our decimal places. Now let's continue the question using our normal method, which is the bus stop method. And that gets us 374. Now when it comes to dividing, however many decimal places we take out initially, when it's time to put them back in, we have to take away 2. We're going to do 3 take away 2, which is 1. So we're going to bring 1 decimal place back. And we get 37.4 as our final answer, guys. For the next question, we start with a Venn diagram. We have to fill in this diagram with the information they've given us. So first, let's start with what's common in A and B. which is 6 and 18. Now let's fill in the remaining of A and B. Don't forget guys to fill out the outside of the Venn diagram too, which in this case is even numbers less than 19. You've just secured yourself 3 marks. Question 22. We have some mixed numbers and we need to subtract them, giving our answer also in the form of a mixed number. To do this, let's first convert our mixed numbers into improper fractions. To do that, we multiply our denominator by our integer in front of the fraction, and we're going to add our numerator. So in the first case, we have 4 and 1/5. That becomes 21 over 5 since we multiplied the 5 and the 4 together and we added the 1. Now we need to find our common denominator, so we're going to cross multiply and multiply the denominators together to get our common denominator. We get 23 over 15. All that's left now is to convert this back into a mixed number. To do that, we need to see how many times 15 will fit into 23, which is 1, and our remainder is our numerator, which in this case is 8. So our final answer is 1 and 8 over 15. In this question, we're given 2 different houses with different values in 2017. Now their values change in 2019, and we need to find out which house has the greater value. So let's start in 2017 and write down what we know. Now let's move to 2019. Tamara's house's value had decreased by 20%, so we can write that as times 0.8, and we get 176,000. Now Raheem's house's value had increased by 30%, so we can write that as times 1.3, and we get a value of 208,000. So to answer the question, Raheem's house has a greater value in 2019. In question 24, we're given a ratio, and we're also given some information. Now we need to find out how many more stickers Ibrahim has than Rosie. We start by writing down what we know, which is the ratio of Matilda to Rosie to Ibrahim, which is 4 to 7 to 15. As we know Ibrahim has 24 more stickers than Matilda, let's first compare the difference between them in our existing ratio. This difference is 8. Now to get that difference to 24, what can we do? We can multiply all 3 terms by 3 and we get 12 to 21 to 45. Now our difference is 24, and now we can actually answer the question. The difference between Ibrahim and Rosie is 33, which is 45 minus 12. Moving on to question 25, we need to work out the height of a prism. Again, we start by writing down what we know, and we can also label in our missing side, which is what we're trying to find, h. Since we're given the volume of 750 centimeters cubed, we can equate this to the algebra formula for volume for a prism, which is the area of the cross section times by the length of the prism. For the cross area, being a right angled triangle, we can work out this area by doing h times 5 divided by 2. Now we times by the length, which is 25. All that's left to do now is to rearrange our equation to get the value of h. That leads us to a value of 12 centimeters. Now we have a very fun type of question, a show that question. We need to show that x is equal to the root of k times pi. We're given that the surface area of the cube is equal to the surface area of the sphere. Our first step is to write this in maths terms, which I'm going to do now. The surface area of the cube is equal to 6x squared, since the area of one side is x times x, and we have 6 sides, so we get 6x squared. For the surface area of the sphere, we know the surface area is 4 pi r squared, and our radius in this case is 3, so that gives us 36 pi. Now let's equate them together. And finally, all that's left to do is to get it in the form of the question, which is x equals root of k, which we need to find out, pi. And we get x is equal to root of 6 pi. So k is equal to 6. For question 27, we need to complete the error interval for a reading. Now the reading is 7.2 centimeters and is correct to 1 decimal place. So we need an upper and a lower bound for our interval, in which once we round, we'll get to 7.2. Starting with our lower bound, let's have a think of what number that can be. So we need the lowest number that can round to get 7.2. In this case, that'll be 7.15. And for the upper bound, it'll be 7.25. So you can see the difference between our intervals is 0.1, which is 1 decimal place. You've made it now, guys, to the final question in the exam, question 28. Now it's supposed to be the hardest question, but let's see if we can tackle it. In part I, we're given the equation of a line. Now we need to work out what the gradient is. Remember, the gradient is always the integer in front of our x value, in front of our x. So in this case, we have -4. For part II, we need to find the coordinates where our line crosses the y-axis. As you can see on our graph, for any line to cross the y-axis, our x value must be equal to 0. So let's sub in x equals 0 into our equation. And we get a y value of 3, so our final answer is 0, 3. You've now made it to the end of the paper, guys, and honestly, I don't think it was that bad. Let me know in the comments how you found it and what papers you want to see me complete next. That's all from me, guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.